10. Killer Hug. Christina Grimmie was killed in 2016 by a man named Kevin Loibl. Christina was an American singer and star on YouTube. She started with covers in 2009, released her first EP in 2011, and became a contestant on season 6 of The Voice. She was a rising star. She even got herself an acting role and appeared in her very first movie. But tragically, she was shot to death at an autograph signing at the Plaza Live in Orlando, California. Kevin Loibl showed up at her autograph signing equipped with 2 handguns and 2 extra magazines, and also a large hunting knife. Because there were no metal detectors at the venue, he was able to walk straight up to the performer, strapped like Rambo, and shoot her once in the head and twice in the chest. To make the whole thing even more disturbing, Kevin did this as Christina opened her arms to give him a hug. She thought he was an ordinary fan and was trying to show her appreciation. That was when he pulled out his weapon and committed murder. As it turned out, Kevin was extremely obsessed with the singer. His colleagues described him as socially awkward and detached, and said his weird obsession with Christina Grimmie was far from healthy. He wasn't normal. He frequently said things that struck his co-workers as weird and sad, but he never gave any indication that he was plotting a murder. It just seemed to have exploded inside him, all because of his obsession with a famous person he didn't even know. 9. Attack on Seth Rollins. During a live broadcast of WWE Raw from the Barclays Center back in November of 2021, a fan attacked superstar Seth Rollins. And all because he'd been catfished and scammed by an online social media account pretending to be the wrestler. In other words, the attacker believed Seth Rollins had trolled him on the internet, so he showed up to his match to get some action for himself. The fan has been identified as Eliza Spencer by the New York Police Department. He's a 24-year-old guy from Brooklyn with no criminal record before the incident with Seth Rollins. As for what actually happened at the show, it was a major ambush. Spencer attacked Rollins as he walked up the ramp to go into the backstage area after his match with Finn Balor. He didn't do much damage, and Rollins was right back on his feet after the attack, yelling, "Is that all you've got?" Before Spencer could do anything else, security members were pulling him away, flailing. But the weirdest part is really the whole thing with the fake social media account. Someone actually set up a fake Seth Rollins account as far back as 2019 to scam people out of hundreds of dollars. Apparently, the faker managed to get Spencer's girlfriend in trouble with the law because of some fake check. Spencer became so angry that he finally broke down and tried to attack the WWE superstar. 8. The execution of Andre Escobar. Andre Escobar was a famous Colombian soccer player who made a very dangerous mistake. At the 1994 World Cup, after Colombia had finished at the top of their group and beaten Argentina, he accidentally scored a goal for the opposing team. It was a total bungle during the match between Colombia and the United States. American midfielder John Harkes kicked the ball towards the goal. Andre deflected the ball and it bounced all the way back into his own net. It cost him the game, with the US taking the lead and winning 2-1. Most people would be pretty understanding about what happened. It's not like he deflected the ball on purpose to lose the 1994 FIFA World Cup. Sure, his fans and teammates were angry, but that's just part of the deal that comes with being a famous sports player. What Andre Escobar couldn't have possibly imagined was that he would be executed for losing the game and angering a local drug cartel. It was as Andre was leaving a nightclub in Medellin when 3 men appeared in the parking lot. He was shot 6 times, and each time a gun went off, the killer shouted, "Goal! Goal!" Under investigation, it came to be known that it was Santiago Gallon who ordered the hit, and all because he'd lost a sizable chunk of money on the game. He was given 43 years in prison for it. 7. Attacked on stage. Ally Brooke, one of the members of Fifth Harmony, was attacked at the airport in Monterrey, Mexico. A fan trying to touch her nearly ripped the shirt right off Ally's body. Even though she was surrounded by security guards, a psycho saw her, wanted to get close to her, and clawed at her clothes like some kind of insane raccoon. And that's just the kind of terrifying thing that can happen when you become famous. But Ali's nightmare in Mexico was only just beginning. When she and the other performers got on stage on September 29, 2016 to perform, yet another fan tried to attack her. This time, it was a bit more violent. The fan climbed onto the stage and sprinted at Ali as if she wanted to give her a hug, but it turned into more of a creepy, drooling bear hug. The crazed fan locked his arms around Ali and refused to let go, clinging to her hair and knocking her to the ground. She was eventually rescued by her security team, and she kept on singing. But after being attacked twice, it must have put a serious damper on her trip to Mexico. 6. Marilyn Manson punched in the face. When Marilyn Manson visited a Denny's restaurant in the Canadian town of Lethbridge on a Sunday morning in 2015, he was given a local grand slam by someone who disliked him a lot. Canadian police confirmed that they were called to a disturbance at the Denny's early in the morning, and that the victim, Brian Warner, known to the public as Marilyn Manson, had sustained minor injuries. As Manson was sitting down eating a very late dinner, a couple of young women asked him for a photograph. He said yes, and that was when a man came out of nowhere and sucker punched him in the face. No reason, no motive. He just hated seeing the famous Manson being ogled by fans in a Denny's and thought it would be good to rearrange his face. 5. Duffy's kidnapping. In February of 2020, singer-songwriter Duffy shared details of what has to be one of the most horrific experiences that's ever happened because of fame. The 35-year-old revealed that she had been abducted, then kept as a prisoner for over 4 weeks before she escaped. She had literally been kidnapped, drugged, and stolen to a foreign country. According to Duffy herself, it happened on her birthday. She was drugged at a restaurant, and then the next 4 weeks were like a horrible fever dream. She was in and out of consciousness. She woke up in hotel rooms only to be tortured. Eventually, she was brought back to her home in the UK and dumped by her kidnapper. He just dropped her off like nothing had happened. He then told her not to go to the police, not to name names, and to keep her mouth shut or he'd murder her. If you're not sure who Duffy is, she was really famous in the UK back in 2008. She had the top-selling album in the United Kingdom and then won 3 British awards and a Grammy. But after she released her second album in 2010, she vanished up until 2020. And it was all because of this terrifying incident, one that still has her afraid to be in the spotlight and suffering from PTSD. 4. Beating up Shia LaBeouf. Just like Marilyn Manson, Shia LaBeouf was also given a bit of a beatdown in a Canadian city, and all for being famous. This one was way back in 2011, at the peak of LaBeouf's fame. This was after Indiana Jones and Transformers, when he was really at the top of his game and before he started spiraling out of control. He was outside the Cinema Public House in Vancouver in the middle of the night when a group of drunk guys saw the famous LaBeouf. Apparently, they weren't fans of his. One of them took off his shirt and started beating him with his big, balled-up fists. At the time, LaBeouf was only 25 years old. He was in the province shooting a new movie with Anna Kendrick. And according to what witnesses said about the bar fight, it started inside and then dragged outside. Customers at the club said LaBeouf was involved in no less than 3 fights on that single Friday night. He just kept getting in confrontations. He was extremely wasted, and he took several punches straight to his face. The fight on the sidewalk happened simply because LaBeouf had argued with the guy inside and then been caught in the dark waiting for a cab. When you're young and famous and trying to party with the normies, this kind of thing's bound to happen. 3. Teresa Saldana. In the early 1980s, Teresa Saldana was a rising star. She played in movies like Defiance and alongside actors like Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. But during her rise to fame, something unexpected happened. She became the fixation of a mentally disturbed man who believed he was the angel of death. And in 1982, his obsession with Teresa turned violent. His name was Arthur Richard Jackson, a deranged fan originally from Scotland. He waited for Teresa to arrive at her home in West Hollywood. When she got there, he walked up and asked if she could confirm her name. She did, and he stabbed her with a hunting knife. He stabbed her so brutally that the knife actually bent from hitting her bones. Thankfully, a delivery man named Jeff Fenn saw what was happening and ran to rescue her. He wrestled the knife away from the deranged Arthur Jackson and called for an ambulance. By the time paramedics got Teresa to the hospital, almost all the blood had left her body and her heart had stopped working. Only after emergency heart and lung surgery and 26 fresh pints of blood was she brought back to life. Teresa survived the attack, but her life was never the same. She strayed from acting and became an advocate for crime victims, raising awareness about stalking. It was thanks to her efforts, as well as the horrible attack on Rebecca Schaffer in 1989, that resulted in California passing the first anti-stalking law. 2. The Glasgow Creep. Joshua Murray has been called the Glasgow Creep. The 22-year-old man from Scotland bombarded his favorite Instagram influencer, who happened to be his ex-girlfriend, with spam calls and emails. His ex is Cara Jarvis, who's not that famous, but still has tens of thousands of followers on social media. For an ordinary guy in his 20s, it seems the idea of losing his famous model girlfriend was just too much for Joshua to take. After repeatedly sending emails and threats, hundreds of phone calls, he showed up at her house in April of 2021. Joshua went full stalker, and Cara had to call the police on him. They called his actions disgraceful and terrifying. They gave him 100 hours of unpaid community work, and he got a no-contact order for 2 years. If he goes anywhere near his ex, he'll be sent straight to jail. 1. Sucker punching Rick Moranis. Sometimes being famous means a stranger's gonna punch you in the face. It's exactly what happened to Rick Moranis in 2020. If you don't know the name, you'll undoubtedly know Rick's face. He was in Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He was also punched by a homeless man with a history of mental illness while walking down Central Park West in New York. The man just punched Rick in the face and then kept going, seemingly for no reason at all. But what's really crazy is that it actually didn't have anything to do with Rick Moranis being famous. It was a total coincidence. The man who punched him is Marky Ventura, and he has a dangerous history of sucker punching strangers in the face. He was hit with at least 5 assault charges within just 6 months of one another in the same year, each of them unprovoked. Sometimes he robs them, sometimes he just punches them and runs. Rick Moranis just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be a famous movie star with dangerous stalkers, or a famous sports star with millions of people who hate you? Let us know what's worse in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.